Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys should subscribe, ring that notification bell, and yeah, do all of that stuff, I guess. You guys should also become patrons over on Patreon if you guys want to support the channel directly, or join using the join button for YouTube membership stuff, perks. I don't know. All of that sort of stuff. Anyway, today is going to be my best to worst, my favorite to least favorite Kingdom Hearts world list. So to get some stuff out of the way first, I'm not including Winnie the Pooh because it's not necessarily to scale like some of the other world, like when compared to the other world, so it's like, that's not fair. We're not including it. It's like, at anything, it's just another like mini game, so I don't feel like it should count. That's just me. You guys may be like very offended by that, I don't know. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I will probably like refer to the worlds by their movie titles, just because that's just what happens. Like, it's just easier, it's more casual, I guess, whatever. You guys will understand what I mean, so it's like no big deal, y'all get it. So that's the other thing. The third thing I kind of wanted to establish is like what I expected to like and dislike, right? I'm a Disney princess type of girl, so I thought for sure, Frozen, Tangled, like they would be my top two, like which order they were in, whether they were first or second, like either one. I wasn't sure. Like, I was kind of leaning towards Frozen being my favorite world, while Tangled would be my second favorite, you know, sort of like that. And then the Pixar worlds sort of fall between, right? Because I have a stronger connection to the Disney princesses compared to some of the Pixar movies, so I was kind of like, whatever, like about the Pixar worlds, if that makes sense. I also really expected to like Big Hero 6, just because, I don't know, like, I had never watched the movie before, but like, you look at Baymax and you just love him. I watched the movie before Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'm saying like in the months leading up to it, when Big Hero 6 was announced, I was just sort of like, I'll probably like that one. That'll probably be high up, right? That'll probably be my third if the two Disney princess movies are like first and second. Then I thought Pirates would be last, because no tea, no shade, okay? But, you know, judging by recent history, like looking at Dream Drop Distance and the live action movie that was in Dream Drop Distance, right? Like Tron. Like, as history, like, would history repeat itself? Would it be trash? We did not know. So, with that out of the way, I hope that you guys enjoy my list. Alright, let's do it. Number 7 for me is Frozen, and for a world that I thought I was gonna love enough to be like my favorite or like put in my top 2, like Frozen was like extremely disappointing, unfortunately. And when it came to Kingdom Hearts 3, I tried not to set my expectations too high, right? Because I feel like with other players, like their expectations, their hopes, and their dreams like for the game have been sort of like festering over years, and the game would never be able to live up to the expectation like made in somebody's head, and that's sort of like another video for another day, obviously. But with Frozen, I did have some expectations. Like, I wanted Sora to compare Elsa's situation to Riku and try to use his experience with Riku's friendship, you know, like their relationship, in order to like help her and help Anna. And this actually kind of happened, so like points for Frozen, since like Sora actually thinks about this while talking to Anna and all that. So I was just like, I was happy about that. I was like, yay, like they did it. But the problem with this particular world is like Sora, Donald, and Goofy are just sort of dragged along for the ride. Like in other worlds, especially when you look at other games, right? I would argue Sora, Donald, and Goofy are pretty important in terms of actually helping the characters, right? To use an example from Kingdom Hearts 1, you know, to kind of show how the other games do this, like Alice is trapped and we're the ones who are like, you know, it depends on us whether or not we like rescue her or whatever. Like, we have to go find the evidence, we have to prove that it was the Heartless, or we have to fight, and then, you know, obviously she disappears, and then it's like, oh, we gotta go get her back. We fucked up, right? If you want to call it that. You know, or even when you look at like sort of other Kingdom Hearts games, it's like, yeah, we're sort of instrumental in driving along the movie plot, even if they heavily rely on the movie plot. Because I would say that Kingdom Hearts 2 more so heavily relies on the movie plot compared to Kingdom Hearts 1. But either way, I feel like that there are some very good examples of like, yeah, Sora is definitely important. He is instrumental to what is happening here. Without him, the Disney characters would not succeed, sort of thing, right? And even in Kingdom Hearts 3, like in the Big Hero 6 world, they need Sora to be able to save the city, or else they are fucked, right? But in Frozen, it's like, Sora doesn't help Elsa, he doesn't really help Anna or Kristoff, like, he's just basically running up and down the mountain by himself, seeing stuff happen, and he's not really, like, involved with any of them at all. Like, a lot of people had so many hopes for Elsa and Anna, like, being in your party and all that stuff, and, like, Sora having to protect, like, Anna and Kristoff, or like as they try to go up the mountain, right? Or like Elsa accidentally like attracting Heartless and Sora's being like, no, you gotta fight the darkness, like it's not your fault, when she's having that scene where she's sort of lashes out at Anna and ends up freezing Anna's heart, like sort of all of that stuff, and how like Elsa would be manipulated by Calxiyn. Like we just sort of had all these ideas, I think, as a community, but none of them happened. Like Sora just wasn't important, and at least like I would imagine, right? I know that Disney's pretty like sensitive about some of its IP compared to like other stuff, right? In past Kingdom Hearts games, the princesses have been in your party and they just did not give a shit. Like they didn't care, right? Like Ariel was in your party, she was fighting, I'm pretty sure in Kingdom Hearts 1. Like they didn't, you know, they didn't say anything about that. But I feel like that because Nomura was like, or somebody on the team was like, hey, Frozen was the world that had the most restrictions, I feel like this is sort of why, if that makes sense. Like this is why the world turned out like this, because Disney had all these restrictions, if that makes sense. And I feel like it was a giant advertisement for Frozen 2 in my opinion. Like I don't think it's a coincidence that Kingdom Hearts came out and then like a couple weeks later the Frozen 2 trailer came out. Like I feel like it was all sort of building towards that. And Elsa's like song sequence was fine, like her like Let It Go was okay. But Anna's was really awkward, like the do you want to build a snowman, especially because I don't think it was the girl from the movie, and the girl that they used for the game didn't necessarily deliver it as well. And it was also just really awkward since Anna was just like, oh, I don't know you, but I guess I'll sing my life story to you, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? It was just, I don't know, it was just really strange, and we didn't get any proper interaction between Anna and Sora, if that makes sense. At least I don't think so. And we didn't get to like go into Elsa's palace or like see the town or like the rock people. And my problems with this world could be fixed with like a second world visit DLC, but I'm not sure like whether or not that's gonna happen. Again, this world had the most restrictions, and at this point I'm like, if I were Nomura, right, maybe Disney required them to put Frozen in the game, I don't know. But if I couldn't have what I would envision or like what I like wanted to be fully realized in my game, if that makes sense, like I just wouldn't put the world in the first place, right? Like if I knew that I wasn't gonna get to tell the story that I wanted with the world, because I'm very skeptical whether or not, because there's so much they could have done with the world and they did this, like I don't think that was the team's decision, if that makes sense. Like I think that was Disney sort of putting all these heavy restrictions on them, and they only had so much to do with what they had left over. And so maybe Disney would loosen up for DLC, and after seeing the fans' poor reaction to the world, because this world is definitely the worst. Like, I'm pretty sure that most fans have sort of looked at this world and been like, yeah, this world is the worst one, right? Like, there's no doubts about it. At least, that's how I think that most people see it. For world number 6, though, I would like to put Hercules, okay? No tea, no shade. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sorry, and I'll explain why I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I overall, like, I enjoyed this world in some respects, right? Like, I think it did a really good job with setting the stage of what we could expect from other worlds, like these giant areas, like how beautiful everything looks, the boss fights, like all that stuff. Like, I enjoyed being able to explore the world, like, it's a beautiful world, right? But my problem is mostly with the story stuff. Like, Hercules has been in almost every single game, right, at this point. And some fans may be starting to get worn down by it. I was like, okay, they're starting with Hercules, that's fine, but it's sort of like, Hades is just doing the same old thing. We have fought most of the Titans before, and even though we saw Zeus, right, which I was like, nice, like that's cool, like that's a good addition, we didn't get to see any of the other gods in the movie. There were like 2. Like, this is the thing about this world that bugs me. Like, this is a personal thing that just bothers me. In the cutscene on Mount Olympus, there are 2 gods chained up, which is pretty pathetic. Especially, like, the game has such, like, an expansive, like, NPC life, if that makes sense. Like, there's so many NPCs everywhere. And what bothered me is that, like, you know, in the movie, the reason why we're in a dire situation, like, in the movie, is because Zeus and, like, all the other gods have been sort of chained up. But you're, like, you mean to tell me that there's only Zeus and 2 other gods on Mount Olympus? Like, you don't understand what I'm saying? It was just sort of like, yikes. Like, they could have added at least some of the other ones. Not all of them, maybe, because there were a crazy amount in the movie. but it's sort of like, that took me out of it completely, because I was like, there are no stakes here. Like, there's 2 gods have been tied up, and Zeus. Like, that's it, you know what I mean? It just, it was laughable how pathetic that was. If you look at it from, I guess, the perspective of the story, like, really? Like, this is all y'all got? Like, okay. Or whatever. Because you either imagine, oh, all the other gods are tied up somewhere else, I guess, right? Which doesn't really make any sense considering what's going on. Or, no, all the other gods are fine. They just didn't show up. Like, when you think about it that way, I'm like, oh, dear. But yeah. So that was one of the things where that just took me out of the moment. Like, that took me out of how high stakes everything was, if that makes sense. The other thing that bothered me was Phil did not say anything to you at all. Like, in the other games, they've sort of made a big deal of, like, getting Phil's approval and, like, getting Phil's recognition. And it's, like, all the way back to, like, Kingdom Hearts 1, like, about being a true hero and, like, the strength of your heart and, like, all that stuff. But, like, he doesn't say anything or acknowledge them. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that the Japanese actor for Phil passed away, and it would be, like, disrespectful to replace him. And I get that, but I think his character is important enough to be replaced for the reason I already said. Like, there's been sort of this entire character arc about Phil being like, yeah, like, you guys aren't quite ready yet, we can call you junior heroes. Like, him sort of, like, easing up over time as he sees their growth and as he sees their development. But he didn't even say anything, and I was so sad. Like, I don't know. You guys probably are like, Cal, that's not a big deal, you know what I mean? Because like I said, the world is beautiful, it's expansive, you know, you feel like you're actually helping people, like, you know, compared to Frozen or whatever. But it just pulled me out. Like, it didn't give me that sort of sense of urgency, like only having those 2 Mount Olympus gods tied up. And then the stuff with Phil, it's just like, that's such a missed opportunity to sort of make this story come full circle. Like, your relationship with Phil since Kingdom Hearts 1, like, he watched you grow from, like, a boy into a man, you know what I mean? Like, because you were, like, tiny, like, as Sora, and now you're, you know, you're basically an adult, or at least more of an adult Sora, because if you have, like, 14-year-old Sora, 16-year-old Sora, and now you're a little older, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like watching your kid grow up, and so he didn't say anything, and I was just like, that's unfortunate. And I did enjoy this world more than Frozen because at least the environments were pretty. Like, Frozen was sort of just the same thing everywhere, and like the labyrinth and all that stuff, like it was just sort of plain. So I felt like I was actually, you know, a part of the world, but it was still kind of meh. So that's why Hercules is over Frozen, because it at least sort of made up in like places that Frozen failed, which was like environment and all that sort of stuff. Number 5 is Toy Story. Overall, I really enjoyed this world, and I think they did a good job at certain parts. I think that they did sort of mess up in other areas to some extent. Like, it was a little sad, for example, that the other toys from the movies, like, weren't included, but I understand why. Like, the story explained why they weren't there. There were lots of memorable interactions with Woody, Buzz, Rex, Ham, and it was super fun, like, as a world. Like, it was a fun world to play in, to bounce around in, like, to sort of be a part of, like, their, like, adventure. The designs for Sora, Donald, and Goofy are really cute, and I really like the idea of, like, the toys being possessed by darkness and the evil doll fight mini-boss and all that. What Frozen did that failed, what Toy Story did that Frozen really failed to do, what a hell of a sentence, guys, was that, like, we really connect to the main storyline as well, if that makes sense. Like, when I first saw the Toy Story world, I was like, oh, like, Riku, Replica, and Xion are sort of toys, right? So this concept could be explored in the world, and I feel like they did a good job with relating Toy Story back to sort of the main plot points, if that makes sense. And so I was really happy with it, because that's something I expected. I was like, oh, they could, like, take this opportunity to sort of talk about, like, Riku, Replica, and Xion, and sort of all of that stuff. Or at least, even if it wasn't outright stated, like, it was enough of sort of a comparison that the audience could make by themselves, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like they did a really good job at sort of drawing those connections, especially, like, with the doll, like, with the evil possessed doll. Like, when I saw that, like, I immediately sort of also thought of Xion. So I thought that they did a really good job with being able to sort of connect those points. The only thing, again, that I have to complain about is, like, the world felt a bit too long. I feel like that it was sort of a, I don't want to say a fetch quest, but it was sort of like, go find this person, then find that person, then find this person. Oh, and now this person's gone again, so go back and find them. Like, it was a lot of, like, unnecessary running around, I guess. Like, again, it was sort of, like, fetch questy, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that Toy Story was good overall, but it just had some of those problems, like, it went on too long, like, it wasn't necessarily, like, the way that they, like, how they were directing you to run around in different areas wasn't the fun part. Being in those areas was, but sort of the problem was, like, oh, we gotta go find another one, like, we have to go, like, run around and find this, like, other person that's been, like, lost or whatever, and all that. Like, I think for a lot of people, they didn't necessarily find that part fun. But if Frozen was the worst and Hercules was just kind of meh, Toy Story, I think, was good, is what I would say. For number 4, I have Big Hero 6. I think similar to Toy Story, this world has some problems, but like those problems aside, it was really, really fun and enjoyable. Like, fighting with Baymax in your party is awesome, and so is Sora hanging out with the rest of Big Hero 6. The storyline for this world was obviously, like, very original, like, bringing back Baymax from the void and all that, like, from the last movie. Like, all that stuff was super cool again. And I like how similar to Toy Story, they were able to sort of connect the themes of Big Hero 6 back with the main plot, or sort of connect, like, Baymax with, like, Xion and Rika Replica and all of that stuff, because it's sort of that same thing. Like, you could say that Baymax was like a puppet without a heart and all that stuff. And so I kind of really like that. And also just what makes a heart in general and all those sort of questions that Big Hero 6 was able to bring up. I also like the scene of them all eating ice cream together, you know, and then it flashing to Roxas eating ice cream with Hayner Pencilette. Like, it was just really beautiful, and overall, I feel like Sora really became a part of their team in a way. And that's really, like, what I was looking for when I was making this list. Like, what worlds failed at implementing Sora to make him feel necessary, to make him feel a part of things? And I feel like Sora really became a part of Big Hero 6. Right? I also like the training that Hero made Sora do at the beginning. I thought that was fun, but my problems with this world and why it's at number 4 is because, like, the city feels kind of boring to explore, or at least overwhelming. Like, I felt very overwhelmed with the city, like, compared to some of the other worlds, especially if you're doing, like, collection, if that makes sense. Like, if you're doing, like, chest collection or to look for the emblems, obviously, like, most people are gonna look up guides anyway, but I tried to, like, you know, I want to get as many as possible by myself. Like, I don't want to just use a guide and, like, cheat my way to platinum, if that makes sense. But, you know, that's kind of what I sort of found overwhelming, I guess. Not necessarily bad, but it's definitely overwhelming, and there's not a lot of stuff to sort of interact with in the city, so it can be kind of boring. I also feel like that it's hard to, like, get fights started and have it be sort of fluid fights going, and, like, now I'm level 99 in the game, so it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't really have to find anything anymore other than for materials, but I was, like, struggling to find a place to really level grind, and Big Hero 6 is probably the worst for, like, trying to, like, you know, get a lot of fights going in a row. Like, I think the best world for grinding, to be honest, if you're trying to find a world and not, you know, a battle portal, because those are definitely better for grinding, would definitely be Monsters, Inc., because it's sort of like you're contained in the hallway, or like some of the areas in Hercules, but that's just me. You guys wanted my advice. But again, if Toy Story was good, Hercules was meh, and Frozen was the worst. I think that Big Hero 6 was really great. I did really have fun in it. The problems I had, like, are really minor and mostly post-world problems, I guess. Like, finding places to fight and, like, level grind. Like, that's a post-world problem. Like, that's not during the world where I had a problem, as opposed to, like, Frozen and Toy Story, where those were, like, in-world problems. Like, you cannot leave, like, or whatever. You can't continue unless you do this problems, if that makes sense. For number 3, I have Monsters, Inc. I think that Monsters, Inc. definitely deserves to be called one of the best worlds in the game. Like, Mike, Sully, and Boo are perfect. Their interactions with Sora and the gang are awesome. Like, having Sully and Mike in your party is super fun. Seeing their interactions with Vanitas is fucking hilarious. Like, it's just, like, nothing can compare to the interactions that you get in this world and how funny they are, but how naturally, like, everybody sort of has chemistry, right? And this world, I feel like, has everything that a world should have. Like, it has some points of high tension, but it's funny, it's fun. I think that some people have the issue of, like, being stuck in a bunch of hallways, but I didn't really care about that, especially because For me, a lot of the worlds were so massive, they felt almost overwhelming, and so to be sort of in a more closed off space for a bit, like, I thought that was nice. I enjoyed seeing Randall and, like, the hazmat suit monsters, or whatever you want to call them, and, like, the monster designs for Sora, Donald, and Goofy are perfect. Like, overall, I love this world. I just can't wait to experience, like, the scene with Sully, like, you know, picking up Vanitas and throwing him in the door, like, over and over and over again. So yeah, I don't really have too many, like, bones to pick with this world. At least I don't think so. Not that I could think of. You guys may, I don't know. But yeah, if Big Hero 6 was great, like, Monsters, Inc. is just awesome. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. Number 2 is Pirates, and so you guys may be surprised considering I said that I thought Pirates was gonna be my least favorite world. And like, if you guys have been following the channel, you guys may be surprised too, because like, it's not like I hate Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's like I've not necessarily been a fan of it. And I did an entire like rewrite of how to like fix the organization members and their interactions in the world in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I had to fix like Luxord and the Pirates world the most, I think. And so like, I was sort of like, Pirates, like, whatever. I didn't really know what to expect from the world, but to be honest, I was expecting not to really like it. But I was wrong, obviously. This ended up being my second favorite world. The Hercules world environment has nothing on, like, the islands and the underwater areas and all that stuff. And I found the underwater combat really fun. I know some people didn't, but I thought that the game really rewards you for exploring underwater, and it makes it really enjoyable to explore, unlike, say, Big Hero 6, where it's just sort of a big city and there's nothing interesting to look at. Like, the islands feel really interesting to explore. I had no idea what was going on in the pirate story, but I didn't care. Like, that may be the place, like, that this world is on a low list for some people, is the story of pirates, but I just did not give a shit. Like, Jack was, like, a fun character as always. I really liked Tia Dalma, or whoever she was. Like, I just loved her character. Like, I latched onto her character right away. Even though I had no fucking idea what was happening, it did not matter. I also enjoyed having Luxord back and having him really, like, interact this time, as opposed to Kingdom Hearts 2, where he was just kind of there, but now he's actually, like, getting real involved, if that makes sense. Or at least more than Kingdom Hearts 2. I don't know why they're calling him Luxord, but I guess, I don't know if his name was outright stated in Kingdom Hearts 2, so maybe we've just been saying his name wrong this entire time, but like Luxord sort of makes sense to me, because it's like luck, and like in Kingdom Hearts, oh god, in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, don't you call it Lux, like the light or whatever, and so Luxord has sort of like the first part of Lux, and so I would assume that's how you say it, but they're calling him Luxord, and so I'm like, okay guys. I also had fun like sailing my ship. If you guys don't know, I love pirate games. Like, I love like the concept of pirates, not Pirates of the Caribbean, but just the concept of pirates and like pirate games. And I was so bummed out when like Sea of Thieves was trash, right? So Kingdom Hearts 3 basically gave me the pirate experience that I've been waiting for. So if Monsters, Inc. was awesome, right? Like, Pirates blew my fucking mind. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it just blew my mind. My number 1 world, if you guys have figured it out, is Tangled. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I assumed that Frozen or Tangled would be my favorite world since I had a greater connection to the Disney princesses. Like, maybe I'm biased, like, from picking Tangled, but I genuinely think that it's the best made world. You get to interact with all the characters, like, especially Rapunzel a lot, and I feel like Sora really made a connection with her. Like, you get to do little things, like, with her, like bring her the birds, or like follow the bunnies, and it was just really wholesome, adorable. Like, I talked a bit of, like, worlds that pulled me outside the worlds earlier, if that makes sense. Like, how Hercules pulled me out of the world by, like, having Phil not talk, for example. But this world had me, like, fully immersed. I felt like Sora was really making a difference, like, in her character arc, and in her character, and in her sort of decision to leave home. And having her and Flynn as party members was awesome. I really like their fighting styles. My only complaint about this world is that you could have still had Rapunzel in your party after, just not fighting with her hair and just the frying pan. But I have an idea for, like, a second world visit that could fix that. Like, that's for another video, though. Even though the majority of the world is like the tower, the meadow, the forest, like, I really enjoyed looking around the town, actually, like, out of all of them. I just feel like the world was just the most fully realized out of all of the other worlds in the game. Like, I think story-wise, they did a good job at connecting Marluxia to Rapunzel compared to, like, connecting Calxiyn to Elsa. Like, a lot of people thought that Calxiyn was gonna be the one who was Strelitzia's sister, and they thought that that was gonna be at play in the Frozen world. And to be honest, I wish that they had done that instead of having it be Marluxia's sister, because that would have made a lot more sense then, like, for Calxiyn to be in the Frozen world, and they could have really built a story about that. But with Marluxia, it's sort of like, I feel like he has a good job, he has a, like, good connection to Rapunzel, if that makes sense. And so, like, similar to how you can see the connection between Toy Story and Big Hero 6 with, like, Xion and Riku, you can see the connection between, like, sort of Rapunzel and Naminé. Like, both are being trapped away and locked up to serve the organization's needs. Like, Marluxia wants Rapunzel locked in the tower so she'll be safe, and, you know, she'll be there in case Sora can't, you know, get all the 7 lights. Like, to some extent, Marluxia has that same mindset with Naminé, like, keeping her locked up because she's part of the organization's plan. And this wasn't necessarily a comparison that the game, like, really pushed. Like, it didn't tell you to think that, I don't think, but I think most players who watched Recom or played Recom will be able to make their, like, that a connection on their own, if that makes sense. Like, some of the best Kingdom Hearts worlds are the ones that are able to weave in the main story with the Disney elements and are able to sort of do that also in a subtle way. And so I think that Tangled was one of the best worlds to do this while balancing all the other elements that make a world good. So obviously the environments, right, how they interacted in the story, the characters, like, sort of fighting sounds. The only, like, little thing that I have is that there's some story things that don't make sense when you watch it a second time. So Mother Gothel has the purse. Then later in the boat ride, somehow somehow Rapunzel has it, but they don't, like, sort of show that scene where Rapunzel got it from Mother Gothel. Obviously in the movie, Mother Gothel pops out and, like, hey, take that, you know what I mean? Here, have this, go see if he actually loves you, right? But that never happens in the Kingdom Hearts, like, in the Kingdom Hearts world, and so you're sort of like, how did she get that? Because the last person that had it was Mother Gothel. Like, what? Right? But that's a minimal complaint, again. I think that this world is perfect. Like, I think that it is basically perfect. It is as perfect as it could possibly get, if that makes sense. At least in my opinion, it is. And I think, again, it does everything that makes a world great, like, that makes a world good. And it did it, like, in the best way possible. Like, it was the most fully realized world, and it sort of utilized the Disney movie to its fullest, and I just love it for that. I love this world definitely the most. So that is it, guys. So let me know, comment down below if you guys have a different list, if your list is the same as mine, if you guys want to talk about things that I sort of didn't mention or forget, because, like, I didn't talk about music, for example. I think all of the music is great, so, like, that wasn't something I felt the need to bring up. Like, that didn't necessarily influence what worlds were first, what worlds were second, all of that sort of stuff, the music and all that. The environments, like, I did talk about them, but they sort of took a back seat because it's like everything is beautiful, right? There's some that are more beautiful than others, but everything is beautiful. So I really focused on, like, how did Sora sort of interact, like, with the story? Like, how was he a part of things? Were there, like, you know, problems in sort of those type of areas? Like, were the environments fun more so than, like, how nice they looked? And so, like, again, Frozen was, like, had some questionable, like, environments, whereas, like, or, like, places to sort of run around in, if you want to call it that, whereas Tangled had, obviously, like, there's just, it's so much fun to just run around the forest and the mines and, like, you know, this field of, like, flowers, like, going down the hill and all that. But yeah, you guys tell me, comment down below on your list, and I will see you guys later. Bye. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you to all of our lovely patrons who have decided to support us over on Patreon. If you guys want to join up, there are a bunch of cool rewards for you guys, and some of the fan favorite rewards, you guys could say, are getting early access to our videos, being able to join and talk in our Discord server, being able to request videos at the $10 tier using video tickets. Those are just some of them, and so if any of those things interest you guys should check it out, become a patron, join our lovely patrons and I in the Discord server, and I will see you all in another video. Bye, guys!